Welcome back to the Bigger Than Birth podcast, where we're celebrating bigger bodies and beautiful births. I'm your host, Victoria Gaba, and each week we will be bringing you the real stories of plus-size moms as they share their journey through fertility, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. These stories highlight what it's like to navigate through this experience as a woman in a bigger body in hopes of creating representation for plus-size moms, both present and future. Thank you for being part of this community as we share these stories that are so much bigger than birth. Welcome to today's show. Today I'm joined by Becca, a mother and teacher from Texas who shares her journey into motherhood. In this episode, we dive into the reality of navigating pregnancy with PCOS and type 2 diabetes. Becca discusses her significant weight loss journey and her experience using Letrozole to finally achieve ovulation and the pregnancy she had dreamed of for years. However, the journey took an unexpected turn at 13 weeks when an NIPT screening revealed a 95% chance that her son Lucio would have Down syndrome. She discusses her 36-week induction triggered by pre-eclampsia that led to a series of intense medical hurdles and a frightening case of shoulder dystocia. Becca discusses the emergency surgery that was required just hours after delivery, resulting in a 30-hour separation from her newborn. We then get into the 17-day NICU stay that followed for her son, and then the moment that she was finally able to bring him home. Becca not only openly shares her story, but also shares resources for current parents or expecting parents of children with Down syndrome. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hi, Becca. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course, it's been really exciting to get ready for it.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you here. So I guess we will get started by just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and where y'all are from.
I am Becca Fajardo. Met my husband in 2018. We've been married for 5 years. Fun fact, we had a COVID wedding via Zoom. Our immediate family was there, and that was it. I never actually worn my wedding dress. I had denim shorts and a sparkly t-shirt that said bride. So it's a fun story for sure. We have a son, Lucio, that is almost 8 weeks old, and we live in Hutto, but I'm originally from Lubbock and met my husband in Copperas Cove, Texas. And we live in Hutto now, and we bought a house about a year ago.
That's always an exciting thing.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So I guess we will jump right into it. I know part of your story is your fertility journey
Mhm.
and all of that. So I guess talk us through the beginning of deciding that you wanted to start a family and what that looked like for y'all.
Initially, I've always wanted kids forever. When I was 16, I didn't have a period. People were like, what's going on? So I went to the doctor. They said, oh, yes, you have PCOS. For those that don't know, polycystic ovarian syndrome contributes to fertility issues, being overweight, acne, extra hair, stuff like that. I took birth control to try to regulate a period for a while, which worked, but I didn't take it because I didn't need it for birth control. As time went on, there was a time I didn't take it for 3 years, and nothing happened, didn't get pregnant, And so I wanted to lose weight before we really started trying. My highest was 405. I got down to 255,
Wow.
which was a big deal. And we finally were like, okay, this is where we're going to start. We tried Letrozole, a fertility med. We did 2 rounds of a 5 milligram dose and then one round of 7.5. And my doctor was like, come in, test to see if you ovulated. And I was like, my numbers are still going up. Should I wait? And she said, yeah, go ahead and wait. Waited, found out I ovulated. Next day, found out I was pregnant. So time-wise, we really didn't try for that long. It was technically only 3 months. But as far as trying unmedicated, it was basically our whole time we known each other, so almost 5 years.
Got it. And so was that all just through your regular OB or gyno,
Right.
or were you seeing a fertility doctor?
Everything was OB. It was a different doctor when I was younger. I adore my OB now. She is fantastic. I don't know if I can give a shout out on that or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Her name is Jennifer Rumpf. She is at Round Rock OBGYN. A big thing I was thinking about earlier is that she never made me feel bad for being bigger. And I think that's huge, especially for bigger women to have that support. And while they might say, hey, maybe it would be healthier if you lost a little weight before getting pregnant or whatever it may be, but do your thing. And so both her and a high-risk doctor said, Would it help you to lose more? Yes. But can you do it now? Yes, go for it. And so I did. She's amazing.
That's awesome. No, I think it's so important because you do hear some of those negative stories. But I feel like a lot of people that I talk to, for the most part, have had very supportive people. And I think the stigma around being plus size and wanting to start a family is kind of shifting, which is a very great thing.
Yes. Definitely, definitely.
So, when you lost your weight, did that regulate your cycle at all? Or that's when it still was kind of iffy and you decided to go with letrozole?
It didn't. I thought and hoped it would. I have never in my life had an unmedicated period. At all. So I did start taking progesterone to see if I could have a period, and in the past, when I tried that, it didn't work. This time it did. So something happened, um, but it was still with medication. So the progesterone was making me have a period, but I was exhausted. I was falling asleep in the car on the way to school. It was not good, but that is what made me have the period, so then I went to the letrozole to ovulate. So it was worth it, but it was a little scary sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. How many rounds of letrozole did y'all end up going with to
We
end up
did
conceiving?
So we did 3. 2 were the
Okay.
5 milligrams and 1 was 7.5, and that was the one that hit. But I think back, um, I ovulated later than normal, so I'm wondering if the first 2 rounds I just tested too early, and so we didn't, have intercourse at the right time, and it could have been earlier, but I'm glad it was the timing it was.
Yeah, I know. It's such a hit or miss, especially with the medicated cycles of like you're trying to play a little bit of a guessing game, but I mean, I guess that's pregnancy in general.
Well, and I did use, Mira, which, I don't know if you know about that one or not. It's a little egg shape and it tracks 3 of your hormones. And so while it was a little more expensive, it was helpful to be able to really see what my levels were. And so I was able to say, "Oh, okay, I need to wait," or "This looks like the time. Let's take care of business," or whatever.
So talk us through like taking that test and finding out that you were pregnant. Were y'all just immediately telling friends and family, or did you kind of hold it close for a little bit?
So it's funny because I went to a show here with a friend of mine and I had gotten my results back for ovulation. And so I looked at it, and this was a Wednesday, I believe. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I ovulated. I don't know if I've ever ovulated." And I started like sobbing in her car, and she's like, "This is awesome. It's going to be great." And she's a plus size girl as well. And so it was kind of nice to have that moment with her too. And so I was like, "Well, I guess let's take a test." And I know it's better to take it in the morning, but time wise, I could take one that day. So I took one that night and I took a video, and I was nervous and my husband was there. And then I looked at it. I can't remember because I didn't show the camera. I was upset. I turned it off. I can't remember if it was just super, super, super faint or if there was nothing. Um, I think it ended up being faint when I looked back later, and that was positive. So this was Wednesday night or maybe Thursday. Yeah, it was Wednesday night. I went in on Thursday for a blood test for HCG. Friday, I went out of town. I went back to Lubbock for my sister's graduation, and I was in I think she was 17 at the time, sister's room, and I was, like, trying to tell her, "Oh my gosh, this might be a thing." My husband comes in, I get the email with the results of it, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh." And it had that my HCG was 7, and so 5 is considered pregnant, but it was straight from the lab, not from my doctor, so I still didn't know for sure, and I was like, "Ah." And it was my sister's graduation, so I told my sister and my husband, and then I wasn't gonna tell people, but I can't not tell people. So we were sitting at the graduation, and my stepmom was sitting there, and I told her while we were waiting for the graduation to start, but she couldn't say anything, and so she was like, what?" Um, and, so I told her then. I ended up telling everyone that weekend that was that side of the family that was there because I couldn't help it. And my sister that was graduating was fine with it. Um, so it was just exciting I mean, my whole family knows I've been wanting this forever.
Mhm.
So we waited a little bit to tell other family. I told a lot of my friends at school because they were um, kind of on the journey with me. They knew that's what I wanted. They knew I was trying, and so it was really cool to have other teachers be with me on that. And then we finally told my mom's side of the family in person over July 4th weekend. Um, and there's almost 20 of us, maybe more now. And we had a list of all the birthdays. And so I was like, this is how I was going to tell them. So I was like, I saw the list of birthdays and there was someone missing. And they were like, "What?" I said, "Who's missing?" to my husband. And he goes, "Our baby." And they were like, "What? Oh my gosh." And my grandmother, I thought was going to have a heart attack because she was so excited. Um,
Oh.
because I'm her favorite, even though she's like, "Don't tell anyone. It's not true. I tell everyone, but it's really you." So we told some, didn't tell some, but it was a very, very exciting um moment, obviously.
Yeah, that's such a fun way to figure out where you have everyone together and you get the shock and
Yeah.
surprise. So that's awesome. So I guess early pregnancy, once y'all found out, once it got confirmed with the HCG test, did you have any symptoms or how did your pregnancy early on go?
I think because I knew so early. I mean, I probably found out the earliest you can find out with 7. Um, I was, was nauseous a lot. I didn't throw up too many times, but was super, super nauseous, but hyper aware. Right, and I was like, "I'm really congested, but I can't take anything," and one of my friends at school was like, "If you didn't know, you would have taken medicine and you would have been fine, but because you know, you're avoiding it, which is good," but I felt like it was rough. The last day of school, which as a middle school teacher, the last day of school is insane. I felt terrible,
Oh no.
terrible, and all the kids are crazy because it's the last day of
I
school.
get all the antsy middle schoolers.
Yes. So I was trying my best to get through that day. Um, I think over the whole pregnancy, well, I threw up twice in labor, but before that, I think I only threw up 3 times, which I was very excited about. I would pop a Zofran and Jolly Rancher and be good to go.
Jolly Ranger, that's a new one. I haven't heard
Right?
heard that trick, but hey,
Good
you do
stuff.
you do what you got to do.
Right?
Awesome. So was the nausea really the only symptom like early on, or did that kind of continue throughout your second and third trimester?
So it led up pretty close to I'd say the beginning of the second trimester and then came back. And I just felt like at least the first trimester, I felt bad like 20 hours a day. Obviously, I was asleep for some of it, but
Yeah.
I felt like 3 or 4 hours a day I was good. But I didn't really throw up. I just felt gross
Yeah.
all the time. Um, but early on, it was that. As it progressed, it was just being exhausted and not feeling I could do anything, and my brain was overkill, and pregnancy sucked. But of course, as soon as I had the baby, I was like, okay, I want to be pregnant again.
Yep, you forget all of that stuff that was not very fun at the time. It's amazing that how quickly we can bounce back from that.
My husband was like, "All right, when are we doing this again?" I was like, "Hold on, buddy.
Yeah,
Give me a second."
that's so funny. So, did you have anything else? So, were they concerned with weight? Did they push anything as far as like, oh, we need to test for additional gestational diabetes or hypertension?
That is a great question. I am a type 2 diabetic, actually, so I didn't do any testing for that because I already had it. Um, so the whole time I was going to a, maternal fetal medicine doctor as well, partially from the weight and the diabetes. We found out at 12 or 13 weeks that Lucio had a 95% chance of having Down syndrome. So that was something else to go and see them for. And what's crazy with that is we were at my husband Tim's parents' vow renewal party at their house. And I see that we get the NIPT testing back and I haven't opened it yet. And I called and I was like, hey, people have said it might not work because of my BMI. Can you just tell me if it worked before I open it? Because I don't want to open it and see the gender, or be upset if it didn't work. And they said, well, it did work, but the doctor needs to call you. And I'm like, okay. So I wait. She calls me. I go into the other room while this party's happening. And she's about to say whatever. And she goes, well, I need to talk to you about something else. And she told me about the Down syndrome possibility. And so I'm in the middle of this party trying to process this. I call my husband in. We're in a back bedroom. And she goes, and you're having? I'm like, no, 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 don't tell me. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Because I wanted to do that with the rest of the family that was there. So we're, sitting with this news. We don't know what the gender is yet. We're sitting that they probably have Down syndrome. So the party finally ends. We sit down with his parents and his brother was there. And he's like, I'm going to film it. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't. And he kind of looked at me funny because he didn't know. And so he said, okay, and I said boy. So I said, we're having Lucio. And then I said, and he probably has Down syndrome. We talked about it a little bit. I'm crying, of course. And, we pushed through. But when I told my family in Lubbock, we knew the Down syndrome part, but we waited to say something. And so it was hard to, because I didn't want to ruin the excitement.
Yeah.
Not that him having syndrome would ruin it, but you know what I mean.
Right.
It's the, oh yay, but,
Yeah. It adds
and
the
I think,
additional worry or things that you didn't feel like explaining
right.
at the time. Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing when I say that people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Well, don't be sorry. It's just a different thing we have to navigate, and there's lots of extra things." And so when he was born, they did confirm that he does have trisomy 21 or Down syndrome. So we worked, held on to it for a long time because it was 12 or 13 weeks. We never got confirmation until birth. It's a
Yeah.
few days after birth.
Mhm.
So he had to do extra testing for that and, checking for different markers of Down syndrome, like there's extra fluid behind the neck, heart issues, kidney dilation, stuff like that. So we went a lot. um, I ended up also having polyhydramnios, so I had so much fluid.
And were those additional tests and screening all done through ultrasound, or did you have to have, like, an amniocentesis, anything like that?
So we chose not to do the amnio. It didn't matter. Like we weren't going to do anything about it. We were going to love our son
Yeah.
regardless. So most of it was just ultrasound scans. Actually, probably all of it, checking him more often than typical.
And were
Yeah.
your maternal fetal medicine and OB, like, doing well together as far as having everyone on the same page, or did they communicate well together?
I think so for the most part. I would say something to my OB and she was like, well, I'll send me everything. And so she could see I don't know how much they talked, but she
Right.
could see all of the like paperwork and stuff. Um, and she's the one who sent me to them initially. So I actually met with the doctor, MFM doctor, pre-pregnancy and basically said, do you think this is a possibility?
Mhm.
And both her and Dr. Rump were like, you could lose more, but you can start now. Um, and so I was able to reconnect with her, which was cool to kinda come full circle.
For sure, and knowing your care team even before, so I feel like that
Right.
continuity is really good.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, walk us through after finding out that
Yeah.
he is gonna have Down syndrome, did you start kind of a journey into researching what that's gonna look like? Anything else you should be prepared for?
I mean, I did. I felt like it was in waves. I would get really into it and then not so much. Um, Early on, it was really hard, but after that, I had a good cry about once a week,
Yeah.
which is fine because and I think it's less of, him having Down syndrome. It was more of mourning what I thought could have been.
Mhm.
But I think that's with any kid. You're gonna see or expect it to be one way regardless of if they're typical or not. Um, and so just thinking about, we might not have grandkids or he might live with us forever, which is fine, but just all these things that could be, or
Yeah.
maybe he'll be nonverbal or whatever. And we're gonna love him no matter what, and we're gonna get through these things. But it was hard. I did join some Facebook groups, which was nice. I realized I joined one that was, public, and I didn't know it was public, and I commented on something and said, "Oh, we just got a 95%, we're trying to navigate it too." And a friend of mine from school sent me a screenshot and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh," which it was fine that she knew, but I didn't wanna share it with
With
everyone yet. So I
everybody,
was like,
yeah.
"Thank you so much." I went and deleted it really quickly, because I just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so she actually has twins, and so while obviously I know it's different, Down syndrome versus twins, but it's still extra that you're not expecting, right? It's,
Yep.
not one typical baby, and so it was nice to, talk to her a little bit about that because she didn't have the typical pregnancy and, neither did I. But I've worked with him. I went to a Down syndrome event with Lucio a couple days ago, and we met a mom, and so it's a lot, and the
Yeah.
appointments have been crazy already, but it's been as good a think as it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it, like you said, it's just not what you might have typically expected up front, but you love that baby so much and you just learn the different way of doing things than some
Absolutely.
other people. So that's awesome. So did you end up going into labor naturally or did you have to be induced or anything?
So I was gonna be induced regardless from my being diabetic, so we were gonna do it at 38 weeks. Um, I was having high blood pressure, and so I went in and they said, "Your scores are really close to preeclampsia, let's do this other test." So I did a 24-hour urine collection. That was not fun.
Did you get to do it
Um,
at home?
so I was supposed to work and I took off because I was like, I'm not going to do that at school. But the result was like right above. So it was just like minor preeclampsia, they said. I ended up going to the hospital again and my blood pressure was like 120 something over 70 something when I got there. And I was like, what the heck? It was a mess. And my husband, I know, was sick of going to the hospital. The third time we went was December 28th. It was a Sunday night. It was a little higher than we would have liked. And the doctor that was there in the, I guess it's like the emergency L&D, she was like, well, I talked to your doctor. I think we're going to admit you and we might induce. And I was like, what? So this was at 36 weeks. I was at 38 for diabetes. We got moved up to 37 with the preeclampsia. And then 36 exactly was that Monday. And so I
So it
was like,
just keeps jumping a week
I
earlier
was
and
like, oh my
earlier.
gosh. And I was trying to avoid December just because Christmas, but early January wouldn't have been that different. Um, so they're like, yeah, we're going to do this today. And I'm like, what? We didn't have a bag packed. We didn't, things people to watch the dogs. We're trying to, figure it all out. So we're staying at the hospital. They end up, admitting me. My husband comes home to get what he can and hopes for the best. um, they broke my water at 5 a.m. on the 29th with Pitocin, did Pitocin, and ended up having him at 5:15 that day.
And so when you went in, when they were monitoring your blood pressure, did they let you know or did you know before that? Were you dilated at all or did they have to do anything to start before the Pitocin?
They checked dilation right before because they broke my water. So they checked it. I think it was a 3. And so they're like, oh, we don't need to do the balloon or anything. So I think I was at a 3. And so they went ahead and broke it. And my
Okay.
doctor said that it was really thick. So it was like hard to get open. And the funniest thing, because I had so much extra amniotic fluid, my doctor and then another doctor that was there, they put like big old boots over their shoes because they didn't know if it was going to gush out everywhere. And it really didn't. But it was just funny watching them get all covered up, ready for a tsunami.
It's like
Um,
they're in the splash zone.
yes. And then it wasn't really that big of a deal, but it was funny watching them do that.
That is funny. Once they broke your waters and you started giving you the Pitocin, did contractions really ramp up at that point or how were your contractions?
So early on, I don't exactly know. I did get an epidural and they did it before. Because I think she knew it was going to be pretty quick. So I did get an epidural. It was nice. And then all of a sudden it stopped working and I was struggling. And so I called and they came back. The anesthesiologist was like, I'm so sorry I didn't turn the pump on. I was so nice. I was so nice. I was like, it's okay. Don't worry. Oh my gosh. And I tell people this sometimes and they were like, I would have been, going crazy. So they turned that back on. It started to work again. And then it wasn't working again. And so some guy came in, which I didn't like very much. Um, but they gave me a bolus to, get it back going. And then it didn't work again. So they came back and gave me another bolus. If we're being honest, I don't remember where I was contraction wise at this point. I just know I was hurting because it wasn't working. Finally, we get a little bit closer. I feel like it's still not working. I'm not sure when in this process. They gave me fentanyl at one point. And the last doctor was like, it's working. It's just not a miracle drug. And I was like, okay. Um, but I guess it was the fentanyl that kicked in because I was starting to feel a lot better. My mother-in-law was there. There was a whole thing I was seeing, like if my mom was going to be there, my mother-in-law or my dad or whatever. And because we had him early, it was kind of crazy. But my mother-in-law was there and she's a retired nurse midwife. So initially I just wanted it to be my husband and I for like the really active part, but I'm so glad she was there. I do not know how I would have made it through labor without her because she, was saying, hey, this is the peak of the contraction. It's not going to get any worse. You're okay. Breathe through it. She was making breathing noises. I wasn't doing the breathing she was showing, but it was helpful. And at one point she stopped. I'm like, no, 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 no. Tell me when the peak is. She was fantastic. And then when I did start pushing, she did leave so we could have that moment. And one of the nurses was like, why are you leaving now?
Yeah, they're just like, you're on call now, ma'am. We're
Yeah.
putting you to work.
Right. But I do not know how to have done it without her. So if we do have another, which is the plan, I'm pretty sure I'll have her, there for the tough parts of the labor for sure.
That's like having an expert in your back pocket or like, come on
Right.
in, girl.
Well, and I thought about having her anyway, almost like a doula, because, well, 'Cause it could have been my mom, and obviously it's my mom, but, like, she knew all the things, and my mom wasn't in town and couldn't get there as quickly as we would've liked, and so it just worked out really well. And she's amazing. She's one of the best humans I know. I definitely lucked out.
That is good because sometimes you don't hear that with mother-in-laws. And the fact that it's like not the story where the mother-in-law demands to be in the room. She respectfully said, okay, this is
Yeah,
y'all's moment.
and she would have left at any time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So once you got to 10 centimeters, did you still feel like everything going on with a little bit of an epidural, or how did the pushing phase go?
So that's what I think maybe the fentanyl kicked in or maybe the epidural or maybe the adrenaline, I don't know. Because the contractions really didn't hurt at that point. Like, I felt them, I guess, but they didn't really hurt. I did some practice pushing, which I was like, "Practice pushing, what?" And so that's what my mother-in-law left, I think, then. And so one of the nurses, I remember I said something about Dr. Rump being there, and, she said, "Well, she may not be here, it might just be one of our doctors." I said, She will be here." And I knew she would because she's that person. And if unless there was something absolutely crazy going on or a problem with her family, I knew she'd be there, even and, 3 o'clock in the morning. So she got there and we started really pushing. I initially didn't want to push on my back, but we did some. And then I turned to the side. The way my body is formed, I couldn't like hold my legs to get that grip to push. And so, like, my husband's there. I want to hold his hand, but I'm like trying to hold my legs back. It's not working. They want me to do 3 pushes per transaction, per contraction. Um, and I did 3 for a little bit, and then I was like, "I cannot do 3." And I was doing 2, and then, Lucio's heart rate started going down, and they were like, "Okay, we need to chill for a second, we're gonna do it every other contraction." Wasn't going as well as they liked. Um, we did have a long conversation before we actually started pushing because he was sideways. He had been head down for, like, the entire pregnancy, and then as soon as they were about to, break my water, so going back, he was sideways, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." So they were saying, "He's flipped, do you wanna do a C-section? Do you wanna try vaginal? I really suggest trying vaginal. It's gonna be harder for you to heal with the C-section, but it's truly up to you." And I really was thinking about a C-section. God, I didn't, in the end. But I said, if we get to a point where it's going to possibly become emergent, that's when I wanna do it.
Mhm.
And it did, and I still didn't pick it, but, um, they said, "Hey, his heart rate's going down. We need to get this done faster. We can do a vacuum assisted birth or we can go, for a C-section." I said, "Well, we can try the vacuum." So to me, it was just like a plunger they would, like, put on his head. Oh, and through all of this, I had to do internal monitoring because of all the extra fluid, all the extra me. Baby likes to move. So that was another thing. But they do the vacuum. I don't remember how many pushes, maybe 4, but it popped off twice. And I was like, "Ugh." And then, gosh, the craziest part. You always hear about shoulder dystocias. So I'm there. I say I'm sitting there with my legs in the air, and I hear someone say shoulder. And there was no panic, but I felt the shift of energy. And as soon as they decided to do the vacuum, they brought in the whole team, NICU and all these people. So I was turned to the side and I couldn't see anybody. And they were like, "A bunch of people are about to come in here." And I was like, "Hi, everyone." 15 people in the room. But I hear shoulder and I can feel the like intensity, but not panic. Somebody jumps up on the bed, pushes him back in, and we're good. He comes out, he's not crying, which obviously is scary. And
Yeah.
I told them, I said, "I know sometimes you'll like lie to a mom and say everything's fine in the moment." But I said, "Don't do that. I want to know what's going on." So my husband goes over to the warmer. They're trying to get, things figured out. My doctor's like, "You're bleeding more than I'd like. Let me figure out what we need to do." They put a CPAP on him. He does cry for a second. And I'm like, okay. So my husband's over there with them. We get the placenta out, which was really interesting to look at. I'm not going to lie.
It's a super cool thing. People get grossed out by it, but like your body grew this.
No, no, no. My husband took a picture of it, or maybe the nurses, I don't know. But I showed it to my mother-in-law and she was like, "Cute."
Well, she gets it. If you get it, you get it.
But it was cool. But he has a CPAP on. They bring him over to me. My husband comes back. I'm out for the world to see. And obviously a lot, I mean, I'm still big, but bigger than I am now and just crazy. But they give him to me for 30 seconds maybe because he needed to go get assessed and I get it, but it was hard. So We had him for a second, some people took some pictures, my husband went with him, and then it's just me and my doctor. She's sewing things up, and so it was while it was really awesome, it was, like, sad because it was just a moment you see all these posts where people are like, "It's the day after you had the baby, your husband's going to get coffee, and you're sitting here, just with your baby, and that's it." And I couldn't do that. Um, so they all left, and it was hard, but she sewed me up, and then I was really alone.
Yeah. So you did tear with it? Was that, they think, from the vacuum or?
So I didn't tear where you probably normally tear,
Mhm.
in the perineum, it was actually in the labia, and I'm assuming from the vacuum, I don't know. It was just first degree, so it wasn't too bad. So my mother-in-law got there, my dad got there, they said hello, they said, "How are you?" Big hug and kiss, whatever, and then they went down to see the baby, which I get. I was on a magnesium drip for my blood pressure, so I couldn't get out of bed for 24 hours, so I didn't get to see him, um, which was really hard, especially because all my family was down there. My dad called me at one point, and he was like, "Whatever you say is fine. Do you want me to wait, or can I hold him?" And I started sobbing, but I was like, "Yes, you can hold him," but it sucked. So I'm letting them have their time, they're all downstairs. I start really hurting, and I'm like, "What is going on? It's this tiny little tear, there's only a couple stitches, why am I hurting so much?" I'm, like, sitting like this, I can't sit flat on the bed, and I'm like, "Golly." So I'm telling these nurses, and they're like, "Well, I'll look at it." They look, and they're like, "It looks fine, like, I don't know what's going on." I start hyperventilating because 'cause I'm in so much pain. 2 different nurses looked at it, they were like, "I don't know, you look good, I don't know what to tell you." And so I don't think they were taking me seriously. Now, I don't think it was because of my weight, I don't, but you never know, you always have to I feel like you can always assume. So, finally, one of the nurses calls and calls someone and was like, "Hey, she's really in a lot of pain, can you come?" And she said, "Oh, like 30 minutes." And I was like, "I cannot do 30 minutes, I can't, because I'm hyperventilating, and it feels like I've been in this much pain for 30 minutes, an hour. It could have been 5 minutes, but I think it was an hour that I'm constantly hyperventilating." And I'm like, "Why didn't we get someone sooner?" Because I was so nice.
Right.
Regardless,
And they just watched you go through labor and push out a baby and be able to do that, to think that, like, you're overreacting over the tear, like, clearly something's going on.
I was like, "Give me the contractions back, please."
Right.
So finally, an OB comes and looks, and they say, "Oh, there's a sac filling with blood." So a hematoma. I don't know if you know what a hematoma or not. I didn't. So she said, "This there's a sac filling with blood. Let me get another doctor to look." He comes and looks, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go to the OR and put you to sleep." And I was like, "Thank you so much. Please do it now." And so I think before the first OB had come, my dad was getting ready to go home for the night. He didn't know I was in pain. I finally called my husband because I had had enough, and I was like, "I need you to come back." And my dad comes in and he's like, "Well, you're in pain. Like, I'm gonna go. I don't know what's going on." He was like, "If I knew you were having surgery, I wouldn't have left." But my husband's back. The OB's in there. Another one comes in, so they take me to the OR. I'm sure moving me over to the bed in there was probably not easy, but it hurt so much. Oh my gosh, it hurt so much. They gave me oxygen, anesthesia, whatever. They told me when they first started the hematoma, it was 5 centimeters. Once my OB got there to assist with it, it was 13.
Oh my gosh. In a
So
span
think,
of,
I
what was
mean,
that, like 30 minutes?
I'm not 100% sure, but maybe.
Yeah.
Because I just think
Wow.
about, you dilate to 10 centimeters and the hematoma was 13.
Yeah. And was
Uh,
it right there where your tear was, or it was in a different
it was a little bit
area?
deeper.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "So I'm not crazy." When the OBs came, I was like, "So I'm not crazy for being in this much pain." And they're like, "No, not at all." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." Because I thought I was being ridiculous. I thought it's just a couple of stitches. Why am I freaking out? So I'm in surgery for 45 minutes, 4 hours after birth. I wake up, I was intubated, my throat really hurt. The tube was out, but I could feel it. I thought I was the funniest person in the world, but that's what happens when they give you good drugs.
Yep.
We're in this recovery room and I'm talking to the nurses out like behind the curtain. And my husband said my stepmom wanted to talk to me. So I FaceTimed her and I was so gone. And then I asked the nurses on the other side of the curtain, I'm like, "How do you spell dystocia?"
They're like, "Why do you need to spell this right now, ma'am?"
I think I was updating people and um, they were like, I don't know, let me Google. I just thought I was hilarious. But we went back. I still, I had to wait another day to see baby, but it was a pretty traumatic birth. And people are like, that was crazy. And I'm like, I don't know any different. So,
Right? Yeah, if you go
but
round 2, then you have something to compare it to, but as a first-time mom, you're like, "Well, this just was what it was." So you go through this unexpected surgery for the hematoma. Was healing after that okay, or did you kind of have some pain healing after that?
I mean, I had some painkillers they were giving me that I was taking pretty regularly for it. Once I finally got to go to see baby, I was taking the wheelchair because it was a decent walk. Um, and so I was there. I went to the emergency department on Sunday and ended up leaving on Friday. So, um, I think I still took the wheelchair until probably Friday because it was just a lot. Surgery and stuff too, and being bigger in general, what made it harder. So my husband was putting in work, pushing me down the hall. Coming home healing, I feel like it took longer than I expected because of the extra hematoma. And now, almost 2 months postpartum, I still have some nerve pain. And I'm actually seeing a physical therapist for that to hopefully, get that over with quicker too.
Yeah, for sure. So how long did Lucio end up having to stay in the NICU?
17 days, which was so hard, especially, I mean, not getting to see him for 30 hours. Now, everyone has their own journey. Feelings are valid because I think about these people that can't even touch their baby, can barely look at their baby. And I got to hold him. He was attached to 1,000 things, but I got to hold him and be with him. So it was hard. I wanted to live there, but I knew that that wasn't healthy for me either.
Mhm.
And so it was hard after going home because, in the Austin area, everything is 30 minutes minimum to get there. So it's 30, 45 minutes one way to the hospital. So if we wanna be there for his what they call touch time of when he would eat or whatever, it was a whole ordeal to be there and, take that time, so we would try to be there for a couple different ones, but my husband went back to work because he could sit in the NICU all day too, but we gotta live. So he went back to work, and my mom actually came that week, which was super helpful, so she took me to the hospital and we, had some time, and my husband went to work, but it doesn't feel like it was 17 days, but in the moment, it felt like it was 60 days.
And was there
But once he
concern his breathing mostly, or was there anything else he was looking for?
So breathing actually, fixed itself pretty quickly. He was on the CPAP that first night, and by the time my family went down to see him, he was already on the nasal cannula
Oh,
instead.
great.
So pretty quickly. He had low blood sugar, which was expected with the diabetes, but that was fixed pretty quickly as well. Um, he was on IV fluids, and then they put in a nasal tube for eating. So feeding was his ticket, basically. They ended up stopping the IV fluids, which was awesome because he kept messing with his IV and they had to redo it like 4 times. But it was feeding. And so he had to take a minimum. And if he didn't, they would put it through the tube. And it was hard because the way that they were wording things, it made it seem like he was going to come home a lot faster.
Mhm.
And I kept saying to the doctors, I know you don't know. I know things can change in a minute, but what do you think time wise? What do you think is going to happen? And they're like, I really can't tell you. He could eat really well for a day and then not so great for 3 days or whatever. But we finally got him to get where he needed to be and come home.
And were you like, before, did you give much thought of if you were gonna try to breastfeed, or did this situation just kind of change things for you?
I was planning on it. I was planning on pumping and breastfeeding. But because of the feeding, they couldn't count breastfeeding as his minimum because they can't quantify it.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to mess up his feeding by trying to breastfeed. So I tried to latch with him a few times and he would for 5, 10 seconds. But I was like, I don't want to frustrate him and then him not eat. So I didn't really try because of that. But I was pumping and taking it down there when I could, and he was supplementing with formula, which is fine. So I did plan on it, but honestly, it was kind of nice. I like the idea of the bonding, but we can bond without that, and we have. So if we're being honest, if we have another, which is the plan, I don't know that I'll breastfeed. I might change my mind when we get to that point and be like, I really want to try with this one, depending. But I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if it's worth the frustration of trying to get the latch and then them not liking it, and then things just
Yeah, especially in that situation because you're wanting him to hit these markers that the doctors have put that he needs to be able to go home. So,
right,
like you said, it's weighing, is this worth it versus as long as he's fed and healthy, we can
right,
get this baby home. So,
right.
I definitely get that that makes a lot more sense. So, once he started feeding regularly, talk us through those first days that they said, "Hey, he'll be able to go home," and bringing him home.
Well, so the first time he took his full bottle was such a moment. And I actually took a picture of the bottle and posted and was like, "Hey, this may seem like an empty bottle, but it's, the first step of him really going." And um, it was really cool to share, the whole story online so people could see, things are getting closer. He's about to come home or whatever.
Mhm.
So he started eating closer. Um, I noticed when my husband or my mother-in-law were feeding him, he was eating a lot closer to his minimum, but not so much with some of the nurses. And I was like, I mean, I don't think we're pushing him too hard, so I don't know what's going on. And they said, well, if that continues, you can room in. So you can be his primary feeders, you can take care of it and see how it goes. So a couple more days pass, and then they said, well, let's go ahead and try the rooming in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So we did that. It was in the NICU, and I didn't know what that entailed, but a bed, a sink, a chair, a bathroom, whatever. So they brought him in, detached all the monitors, which was so awesome. The first night he had a couple troubling feeds, and the doctor came in the next morning and was like, "Do you want to try another night or do you just want to take him back?" And I'm like, "Yes, I want to try another night. Are you crazy?" So I realized if he didn't get good sleep, he didn't eat well. So we became very, very adamant of him getting to sleep quickly. And he did better. And they were like, all right, you ready to go home? And I was like, yes, we're ready to go home. So we got home and his parents were here and, like welcomed us. And they had bought some sparkling cider because we were right then there at New Year's and we were going to drink it at the hospital. Ended up not. So we drank it when he came home. And it was just weird. It was so awesome, but weird.
Yeah, because you go from the NICU with so many medical professionals around, like you said, all of the cords, and then you get home and you're like, "Okay,
You're like,
this is
this
our
is it.
baby."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and my husband, so whenever we found out we were moving in, he took off those couple days and then he was able to take off the next full week, which was really nice. But yeah, I was like, this is our baby. Like, this is what we're feeding him and there's nothing there. And this is our house. It was just crazy. The dogs were so sweet. Our husky is in love with him.
Oh,
Absolutely in love with him. Rightfully so.
that's so cute. Did you have to introduce them slowly, or did they just come and love him automatically?
So our husky gets very excited very quickly. We have two dogs and a cat. And so I told my husband, I said, you need to come in by yourself, then I'll come in by myself, and then we'll bring baby in because they were excited to see us. So we did that. And whenever I went to the rooming in, I was by myself, my husband at work. But I did a little video on the ring camera at the front door and was like, hey, we're going to the hospital. Hopefully the next time I'm here, I have a baby. And so then when we brought him in, we did it as well. And so we had like both
Oh.
videos. Yeah, it was cool. Um, yeah, but the dogs, the husky was trying to lick his face immediately. She loves him, and now she sits in front of his room. He doesn't sleep in there, but she sits on the floor in front of his room. I think she knows and is like bonding with him, and it's so
Oh.
cute.
I know the NICU experience for anyone is such, no matter if it's one day or months, it feels like forever when you aren't able to be with your baby. So I know that was a
For sure.
challenging time, but exciting that he's home and doing well. So, with his Down syndrome diagnosis, is there anything as far as monitoring medically that you do, or it's more just kind of a wait and see with milestones and things?
A little bit of both. There's just 1,000 appointments, which I appreciate, but it's a lot. So
Yeah.
they sent me home with a list, and they were like, "Make this appointment, this appointment, this appointment, this appointment." I'm like, "Okay." Um, We did recently have a cardiology follow-up because in the hospital they found, a PFO is what all babies have, that which I didn't know any of this, but, like, because they don't use their own lungs, and so it's supposed to, like, close up right after birth. They thought it was just that, and then they did a repeat echo in the NICU, and they said it was an ASD or a atrial septic septum, which is more common in Down syndrome babies, because 50% of Down syndrome babies have a heart defect.
Hmm.
So when we did the repeat echo recently, they said, he's so little, we still don't know if it's the PFO waiting to close or the NASD. That's a little more worrisome. So for now, we're good. Come back in a year. And I was like, okay, you're definitely not worried if it's a year. We need to see urology. We need to see ophthalmology. There's a program called Austin First Steps that I think is supposed to like keep it all organized for you. And then ECI, which is early childhood intervention. I hear really great things about that to get them staying with the curve because they are typically behind.
Yeah.
But at 5 weeks, he had his head fully up in tummy time and ready to go. At 6 weeks, I don't know if it's really rolling over. I like to say it's rolling over because that puts him way above the curve, but he's like flipping. So he's still going from tummy to back
Yeah.
at 6 weeks.
Hey, that
Um,
counts.
right? And he's
Yeah.
growing really well. He's thriving there. He gained half a pound in a week. Um, he is super strong. I'm like, dude, calm down. So he really is doing well. I'm trying not to get too excited because I know it's not going to always be that way, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But there's just so many unknowns and so many appointments, and having to go back to work is hard because I want to be there for all those appointments.
Mhm.
My mother-in-law is amazing, and she's going to be there, and she's going to come watch him. She's the best human ever. But it's hard. I want to be a part of all of that.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. I know that's a hard thing when you're trying to keep up with all of the appointments, you're trying to heal physically, mentally, all of that from birth. But it's so good that y'all do have a support system. And like you said, you have a great relationship with your mother in law and someone that you trust with his additional care needs, that
Mhm.
that's someone that understands the baby space and will be on top of all of that.
Well, and I think all she wants, and I keep saying this, the only thing left she wanted in life was a grandchild. And I just think when she found out, it was just amazing telling them because I know that's all she's wanted. And so
Yeah.
she wants to come and be here every day and take care of him. And she's just great. But I know if she overstepped, she would gladly take a step back. Like she is very open to communication.
If only everyone could just have that level of communication and openness with their anybody, family member, partner, everything. I feel like that would just make things so much easier because as a mom, especially early on, there's going to be things that you're not comfortable with straight away. So being able to just openly express that and someone hear that actually is great.
Yeah.
Well, so cool, Becca. I know you kind of went through a lot on the front
Yeah.
end and postpartum. So I will end it by asking if there's any kind of resources or anything that you used either before birth, after birth, with Down syndrome support groups, anything like that. If there's any resources you want to share with anyone else.
I mean, I really just joined a lot of Facebook groups. There's different companies that will like send you stuff and they're like, hey, congrats, you're part of the lucky few, parents with kids with Down syndrome. Jack's Basket is one. Brittany's Basket of Hope maybe is one. The big thing is DSDN, which is Down Syndrome Diagnostic Network. They sent something as well. And they have a bunch of groups and they have an app. And so I think there's a Zoom I'm actually going to go to of babies that were born between July and December. So being able to talk to these, parents that are, experiencing the same things and um the specific chapter, I guess, in Central Texas is DSACT. So I believe it's Down Syndrome Association of Central Texas. And that's who I went through to go to this event the other day and met a mom with a 6-month-old and she found out after birth. And so it was nice that we had different stories, but similar things. And
Mhm.
he's close in age. And so it's a lot to navigate for sure, but it's been super great to be able to talk to these people and like on Facebook even too, people that are just starting their journey. And when I was just starting the journey, freaking out, saying I'm really nervous, I'm scared, and people saying, I wish I could have gotten rid of all this anxiety because it's amazing once he comes. And it
Mhm.
is. And I knew that it would be, but in the moment it's hard to do that.
Of
Um,
course.
so that's my biggest thing is people that aren't super into, like physical support groups or therapy like that, is just to go to Facebook groups. You don't have to comment on anything or post anything. You can just read. And so I
Yep.
think those are, good for everyone.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
link those in the show notes. So if there is anyone that's going through a similar situation that does find out that their child is going to have Down syndrome, that they can use those resources too. Well, thank you so much, Becca. This has been awesome chatting, and I'm so happy to hear your story and so happy that Lucio is doing well and hope he continues to thrive.
Do we need to see Lucio?
We will gladly see him if he is
Okay,
around.
let me see. One sec. Definitely did not wake him up.
Hi, sweet boy. Oh my goodness. Okay, if anyone is just listening to the podcast, you are missing out. So you'll have to go to either our YouTube or Instagram to see this sweet boy, but he is precious. Oh, cutie boy. Well, Becca, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing Lucio's story and your story. I know your story will for sure help many women that are going through the same thing. So thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Bye, Lucio.
Bye!
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. If you enjoyed this episode and want more stories just like this one, please be sure to like and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you have a moment, please consider leaving us a positive review wherever you're listening to this show. These reviews are the best way for the algorithm to push out our show and get us in front of other plus-size moms who may be looking for a community like this one. Your kind words can help make sure that no one has to go through this journey alone. If you are a fellow plus-size mom and would be interested in sharing your story, please reach out to us at biggerthanbirthpodcast@gmail.com. Use the subject line "Share My Story" and I will be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Want to put a face to a voice? Head over to any of our social media pages linked in the show notes below to see more photos of today's guest. Any resources or topics discussed in today's episodes will also be linked below. Thanks again for being a part of the Bigger Than Birth community, and we will see you next week. Bye!